Hello, I'm Justin Dries, Vice President of Communications at the National Council of Farmer Cooperatives. Welcome to another episode of our 2020 Washington Conference Virtual Policy Briefing Series. Joining me right now is Kevin Natz, Vice President at NCFC, handling trade, pensions, and CFTC issues. How are you doing today, Kevin?
Hi, Justin. I'm doing pretty well today. I've been looking forward to chatting with you and have a little face-to-face time with somebody, even though I've had to adjust to, as everybody has, adjusted to operating differently, not in person, but through Zoom and other media.
It's really been an adjustment, and I think staff have all done a fantastic job here, and our technology has been up to snuff. So I think we've all been very fortunate. I know that I mentioned that Kevin handles a lot of trade issues here. We're not going to talk about them right now because we have been able to get Greg Dowd, the Ag Ambassador down at USTR, to record a briefing for us for this series. So Kevin doesn't accidentally contradict something that Mr. Dowd says. We're going to skip over that for right now. But I know one of the big issues, Kevin, that you've been working on for it seems like nearly a decade now has been the implementation of the DoddFrank Act down at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and that we have a relatively new batch of commissioners here, and that you were holding some virtual meetings with co-op representatives and CFTC commissioners. How did that go, and kind of where are we in that decades-long process of implementing Dodd-Frank?
Justin, as you mentioned, this has been an ongoing implementation process since Congress passed Dodd-Frank in 2010. It was actually the summer of 2010, so it's been a decade now. They had about 45, 50 rules that they needed to push out, and we had interest in probably 10 of them. So we've been actively involved with CFTC throughout the decade. And this last rule that we're involved in is the position limits rule. And the reason that one's taken so long is it's quite complicated and complex. And in fact, 3 previous commissioners, not commissioners, but chairmen, put out proposals, but were never able to finalize them. The current chairman, Heath Talbert, has committed to finalize that this fall. He put out a proposal in February. And in fact, we have had some interaction with the CFTC as they were drafting that proposal. They're very open to our views, and the proposal is much better than we've seen in the past. It's come our way a lot, and our CFTC working group, NCFC's working group, has been engaged the whole time. We've been providing comments. They've been engaged for years in roundtables, advisory committee meetings on this topic. And most recently, as you noted, we've been having meetings with the commissioners to talk about the proposal and to talk about our comments. And there's just a few issues out there that we've been talking to them about. But as I mentioned, the proposal is much better than it has been in the past. And we anticipate the proposal, as they work through it to get it final, will be voted on perhaps in October of this year.
Well, that's great, Kevin. It sounds like we're really making progress in coming to a conclusion on the implementation there of Dodd-Frank after 10 years at this. You also deal with pensions, as I mentioned before, and last year, as part of a broader retirement reform legislation, we saw provisions included on multiple employer pension programs of co-ops. Our friends at the Rural Electrics worked with us on this for many years. I know that there's talk of doing something similar now in providing some sort of relief to employers that have single employer pension plans, like many co-ops have, as part of the next COVID-19 relief package. Can you just give a brief update on those efforts?
Sure, Justin. As you mentioned, we were absolutely thrilled to finally get legislation passed that addressed PBGC premiums for co-ops that have multiple employer pension programs. It was a significant decrease in premiums. We estimate of the roughly 400 farmer co-ops that participate in those programs, pension programs, that it will save them in total roughly $25 to $30 million a year. So we were very, very pleased to get that over the finish line. We didn't rest on our laurels, and we turned right to the single employer plans. So back in February, we were supporting a proposal that addressed single employer provisions, such as interest rate smoothing that addresses the historical low interest rates the plans are experiencing, amortization of past liabilities, extending that out to 15 years. And the proposal also had a provision in there that addressed PBGC premiums for small businesses under 500 employees, and it would treat them similar to how our multiple employer plans were being treated. And that would have been significant for a number of NCFC members that have less than 500 employees. And in addition to that, at the very least, we were hoping for a study to look at the PBGC premiums across the board for single employer plans, because they've escalated the past decade and have become excessive. And so we wanted to take a look and see how those matched up with how the PBGC was actually funded. Unfortunately, along with a lot of other things, this got sidetracked due to COVID. So we were very disappointed about that. The only legislation out there right now that addresses some of those issues is the $3 trillion HEROES Act, which we know will not go anywhere in total, but it's nice to at least have two provisions, the amortization provision, as well as the interest rate smoothing provision in there. But we now have to wait on the Senate. Majority Leader McConnell has said they're going to take up another relief package here, I think, in the next month or so. But that's going to be negotiated or basically decided by leadership. So that's going to be kind of like a black box as far as what might be included in there. We also hear the House might take up some other legislation that would provide some relief, further relief, going through the committee. However, we would certainly like to see some legislation that also provided some temporary relief due to COVID. Clearly, plans that were solid before COVID might be in a different position now just because of what that's done to the financial markets. So in addition to the provisions that are already in the House bill, we'd certainly like some more relief given the COVID environment.
Well, let's hope Congress acts here soon, Kevin. That would be a good way to get money out around the country to co-ops and other businesses, frankly, who really need it. So thank you again, Kevin, for joining me today. And as I mentioned at the top of this briefing, if you want to hear about trade, go out and look for our discussion with Ag Ambassador Greg Dowd. And to find out more about any of these issues, please visit the NCFC website at www.ncfc.org. Have a good day.